It's 10:01, so we're going to go ahead and get started. If you would, please rise and for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to call the meeting to order. My name is Therese Butler, and I'm the current president of our HO82 Association. I'm going to go ahead and let everybody else who's on the stage introduce themselves.
Diane Flores, Recording Secretary.
Walter Yazzie, General Manager.
Joyce Howard, Treasurer.
Campbell Cheney, Assistant Treasurer.
Dan Leniger, Vice President.
Mark Eckert, Director.
Chuck Hill, Secretary.
Don Grimm, Vice President.
Okay, thank you. Before we get started, I would like to mention a couple of changes to the agenda as it stands. The first thing is there's one item under new business which has to do with a motion to approve the loan for the MountainView golf course. Due to a request by the bank that we have for a short and sweet motion and set of minutes, at the end of this meeting, we'll adjourn the meeting and then immediately open a new meeting as a board working session with that one item only. So that is going to get moved, and and that's it for now. Thank you. So at this time, we're getting to the business meeting, and I'll open it up to Walter for his report.
Well, good morning. I'd like to just give you a quick report, some highlights on what the staff is up to and what they've been up to in the past month. So, of course, starting with accounting, Terry's been working hard to close out the financial statements for October. I think he's completed that, and they're probably posted. I think they're posted on the website already. So, in addition to that, in his free time, he's been working with this new TEI software and learning how to do the month-end reports and stuff like that. So he's been working hard to figure out how that's going to work at the end of the month of November. Also interesting, I was at a finance committee meeting yesterday and found out that they have a subcommittee, an audit subcommittee. And so throughout the year, they come in and they check on our finances and make sure we have financial controls and stuff like that going on. So we're not just left alone by ourselves, running the finances. The committee has a subcommittee. The finance committee subcommittee comes in and checks on us and just make sure that we're getting ready for the year-end audit. So they've been doing some of that lately. I've seen them in the office talking to Terry. Let me move on to the big issue that we're dealing with right now, and that's the 1st of November. We brought on this new software, which we refer to as TEI, and I think all of you may have ran into some issues with that. If not, then maybe you're one of the lucky ones. But starting out with the website, we launched the website, and we had about 2,000 people get on with no problem, but the other 1,000 to 2,000 we're having issues with. We're going back to the company trying to work those things out. I think we've pretty much figured that out, so hopefully you've been able to talk to the ladies at the front desk or Diane and Adele and get yourself onto the new website. Now, once you're on the new website, you're not free to go. I know that you are trying to sign up for some fitness classes. They've ran into a couple issues with the fitness classes sign up. I know at the golf course, you've ran into some issues there, dealing with the credit book, and at the food and beverage restaurants, we've had issues there. We've got all the POS hard computers up and running, so we're able to do business, but we've been trying to get the servers, the tablets where they can come to your table, take the order right there, and do most of the transaction with you right there at the table. So that's our goal. We'll get there. TEI is having some real hurdles to get those tablets to connect correctly back to the main computers and back to the printers. So, and there's some other things that we're dealing with, but the staff is staying positive. We're working through those. I apologize to you if you've got frustrated with, as we've kind of learned how to use this software, and I ask that you still be patient. Tell your neighbors to be patient as we continue to work through these issues with the software. So I just wanted to throw that out there because a lot of these comments I have in front of me have to do with TEI. The administration office. Again, it's a busy time of year. A lot of you have visitors coming in. If you are looking for guest cards, please call the front desk, make an appointment, and that way you can come in to your appointment. They can get your renters and guest cards made up for you, and then you don't have to stand in line and wait there. So please contact the front desk if you need guest cards made up. Common area folks, they're working in unit 46, 46A, and 48, so they're worked their way down from the preserve earlier this year, and now they're down here in the lower section of Saddlebrook. Each year Anthony has kind of a dilemma because in some areas he's trying to fertilize and get the grass to grow, and in other areas he's trying to kill the grass and the weeds. So he's in the process of doing that right now. Trying to get fertilizing the grass in front of the clubhouse, getting that to grow nice and healthy, and then throughout the community he's addressing the weeds and the grass in the easement areas, or the ones right next to the roadside. Here at the fitness center, if you're trying to get classes, again, everybody's back. Fitness classes are full, so you have to jump on that pretty quick to sign up for your classes. Monthly passes went on sale on the 15th for next month, so get those before they run out. And let's see, food and beverage. So for food and beverage, again, Thanksgiving is just right around the corner, so they're preparing for that Thanksgiving meal. Right now, they say they have 250 reservations, so reservations are starting to get slim there. Some of you may have been in the Mesquite in the morning and been kind of cold for the last couple days. We've got that fixed. We've got the heater back up and going, so actually it's a heat pump, so when it gets too cold outside it has a hard time heating, if you know about heat pumps, but we've got that figured out, so the Mesquite should be nice and warm now. So decorations, each year we try to decorate some. Some people like it, some people I've heard tell me it looks like a steakhouse or something, but we do the best we can to decorate. Not everybody has their same opinions about decorations, but this coming week they should start decorating the clubhouses and getting ready for the holiday festive feel for the holidays. They've also have started working on they got the New Year's Eve tickets are on sale now, so they're going to be $109 per person, and you can contact Liz in Lifestyles for all the details. Golf operations. Just note that golf will be closed on Thanksgiving Day and Christmas Day. And again, this is so their staff can enjoy the day with their family. On December 2nd, note that there's going to be a multi-vendor fitting day. So come out and support that, get some new clubs. And you can, so Matt says to email him or Mike for appointments for that multi-vendor fitting day. And again, note December 5th, they are going to have a end-of-year holiday sale, and that will be at the golf shops between 5 and 7 p.m. So usually golf shops close at 5, but they're going to stay open from 5 to 7 on the 5th of December for a year-end sale. And again, we've already talked about TEI, the IT department, which is one guy, Steve. He has been working very hard to transition to this new software. Marketing, again, marketing is busy. All of the advertisements you get for all the different sections, whether it's food and beverage, theater, lifestyle, and golf, all of that, announcements and stuff come through our marketing department, so they've been busy. And they also are responsible for the website, for the new TEI website, so they've been double busy trying to stay up with the regular job and get the website running. Okay, down to facilities maintenance. They've been working hard. You know, this is a group again. There's several groups that from day to day you don't see them out there. You know, like custodial, you don't necessarily see the custodial folks all the time. Facilities, you don't see a lot of the work they do. There was an issue with some refrigeration at the MountainView kitchen, and they've worked and corrected that. You know, you don't see that in the front of the house, but you know, it's kind of important to keep the food kind of cold back there before we cook it. So there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that are critical that facilities takes care of. If you've driven by up here at MountainView, you've noticed that the 2 tennis courts, they look like they're done. And for the most part, they're done. I just haven't had a final inspection with the contractor. So I haven't opened them up yet until I can have the final inspection with the contractor to make sure they have everything done. There is a delay in the windscreens. Again, logistical delays, COVID. I don't know how long we can hang on the COVID excuse, but they said there's logistical delays on those windscreens, so we'll open them up before the windscreens get here, and then we'll just have to put those screens up when they arrive. Another effort that we're making in facilities is just trying to get the small stuff. You know, a lot of times we focus on the big things. It's easy to see the big things, but working with Ray and his team and just trying to focus them back on some of the small stuff. We've hit the DesertView here, the DesertView Theater, the DesertView Complex. We've done some small stuff around here. It might not be real noticeable, but they're just little things that make it just a little nicer. And then we're going to work our way up through the MountainView Complex and finally up to the preserve. But that'll just be an ongoing thing that I'll continue to emphasize with facilities. Patrol has been working hard with, Dale has been doing a great job with taking stats from, you know, the speed signs we have. They record how many people come by, they record what the average speed is, and so Dale's been doing a good job. Every month he kind of compiles some information for me. It's not the whole community, but just specific areas. He also uses that so that he can focus his patrol on where we see the most need. So interesting enough, I've been here 8 years, and I've looked at these stats for 8 years. And on the main roads, you find that our average speed is about 32 miles an hour. I mean, that's just a fact. No matter what we do, no matter how much patrol is out there, no matter how much flashing lights we've got going, we put up signs, and all the stats always come back. It's about 32 miles an hour, the average. Well, I'm going to say there's a thing they called 85 percentile when you look at traffic. So 85% of the people go 32 miles an hour or below. So that only, you know. So it's not really that bad, but no matter what you do, it doesn't seem like you can bring it down. Now, on some of the side streets, we've found that actually some of the average speeds are actually lower than the speed limit, which actually surprised me. Dale had some information on Peregrine and on some of those roads up there, and those actually average speeds were in like 23, 24 range. So interesting data you get from those signs. You might have seen also some announcements from Dale announcing that there's been some sightings of mountain lions, so definitely be careful when you're out there. He also warned you of the porch pirates now that it's the holidays and you're getting things delivered. If you can be home to get your items, that's best. If you can try to make them where they're not in sight from the road, that'll protect them a little bit. And Dale, out of the kindness of his heart, also has relaxed the parking restrictions for the holiday. So he won't be giving you a ticket. Go, look in the Monday message and you can see the dates between which your visitors can park on the streets and they won't get a ticket. So, Dale can be kind every once in a while. The golf courses. So again, it's kind of the cold part of the year. You're going to have some frost delays, so please if you're a golfer, look on the website and check for golf delays in the morning. Again, we keep getting reports that the MountainView is in excellent shape. And you'll notice also that the fairways collars are going dormant, so they're starting to turn a little brown. And I think Paul's trying to combat that with a little bit of paint. It's kind of a weird concept to me, painting the grass, but I guess that's the way you do it. So Paul's working hard. We're actually going to give Paul a break. He hardly ever takes a vacation, but we're going to let him go have some time with some family here so at the end of the year. So thanks, Paul, for all that hard work you do. And finally, into my report, things that I'm really excited about. I actually hired an HR manager. So we have a new HR manager coming on board, probably after Thanksgiving, but if I can get her here before, then we'll get her on board as soon as possible. And if you know our Director of Facilities and Maintenance, Ray Kuhn, he has been selected to be our new Assistant General Manager. So we're going to move up Ray Kuhn from Facilities up to Assistant General Manager, and then we'll now have to go look for a Director of Facilities. So exciting for me that I'll be able to have someone help me out with all of this stuff. So, and that's my report.
Thank you, Walter. Next on the agenda is our finance report, and that'll be handled by Terry Dempsey, our Director of Finance.
All right. Good morning. So we're going to touch on the October highlights for the financials. With that, one second. So in summary, our income before depreciation for the month of October was $782. This is $49,000 worse than budget. As you can see here, 782. We budgeted 49,830. Year to date, we're at a subsidy of 127,000 on a budget of 191. So that's a miss of $320,000 through October 31st. Restaurants had a subsidy of $31,000, which is $1,000 better than budget, which is this line, restaurants. 31,000. They budgeted 31,000, so just a little bit better than what the loss that they had budgeted. Year to date, we had a $404,000 of subsidy. 246 was the subsidy budget, and that's $158,000 variance. Golf had a subsidy of $99,000 for the month and was $51,000 worse than budget, which is this line. And year to date, $809,000 subsidy on a $596,000 subsidy budget with a miss of $212,000 from the budget. Fitness, theater, lifestyle had a subsidy of $300 and was better than budget by $15,000. Our other income, which is basically made up of the new lots and lot sales or lot transfers. So our other income for October was $300 better than budget, and year-to-date we're over budget by $34,000, and that's this line item right here. So our other income and interest. So we're at $154,000 for year-to-date on a $119,000 budget, which is better than budget by $34,000. With that, our new home sales for October were 2, bringing year-to-date to 30, and our total build-out has been 3139. We budgeted for 25 for the year. We came in at 30. There were 13 resales for October, bringing the total for the year to 167, and we budgeted through December 186. Looks like we might hit that number. It bounced up a little bit. It seemed like June, July, August was slow for resales, and it's bounced up just a little bit. Let's see. If you could, next slide, please. One of the things I want to mention on restaurants was our cost of goods sold. Our cost of goods sold on restaurants were 38% for food. Our combined cost of goods sold for food was 38%. And our combined beverages were 27% for the month of October. MountainView food COGS was 35% for October and 36% year-to-date. Preserved food COGS for October was 46%, and year-to-date was 46.37%. We had some issues with the inventory at Preserved. So if you look at previous financial statements, you'll see some of it mentioning 60% on the food costs. That was just a calculation error by the food and beverage people. We got that fixed and straightened out. Although 46% is not an acceptable number as far as food COGS goes, but it seems to be what they've been running. And from what I've looked at, it's what Preserve has run for many years. So there's either a pricing issue or a food quantity issue that's going on plates. We have to figure that out to bring that down a little bit. And as Walter was mentioning with restaurants, they're really having a hard time with TEI and that transition. So if you guys can be patient with them as they're getting through that, and they're working hard to get through it. So it's an issue that it's being dealt with. Okay. This next slide I have for you. What we did was, oh, sorry, can you go back the slide? Go back one. Thanks. Sorry about that. What we did was we took a look at what we budgeted for the year. It's this column, right? And then we said in July, let's do a reforecast and see how we're doing against budget and what do we think we're going to be at the end of the year. And this is the forecast that we came up with, okay? And then what I did was I said, okay, based on where we're at through October 31st, year to date, I'm going to add November and December forecast and come up with a projection as to where we should be for the end of the year, okay? So that's this column here. So these columns don't necessarily, or these rows don't necessarily change much, so I didn't make any changes to these. So I kind of just assume my projection is going to be close to this, 181, 809 for the other revenue. The ones we're more concerned about right now is our amenity revenues, which are restaurant, golf, theater, fitness, and lifestyle. We budgeted in total for those revenues, we budgeted $7.2 million. We're only going to come in, and then in July we changed and said, okay, maybe it'll be $6.9 million, $6,940,000, and now we're coming in, what I'm projecting at $6,969,000. So the biggest restaurants looks like they're going to do better than what they had forecasted at $28,000 better, and then golf is going to be a little bit worse at $18,000 little bit worse than what they had forecasted, okay? And then fitness is doing real well. They forecasted 159, and I'm projecting their revenue to be near 175, and they only budgeted 135. So they're doing gangbusters over there. Okay. So then that brings us to our total operating revenue. We had budgeted $13,859,000. In July, we said, okay, no, that's probably going to come in around $13,575. And now I'm saying it'll probably be $13,604, which is about a $29,000 difference between what was forecasted in July and what I'm projecting. So that's the $29,000 is being made up by these couple numbers here. Okay, next slide, please. So the next item is our expenses, and basically the same thing. With restaurants, they reforecasted $3,701,000. I'm projecting them to have expenses of $3,727,000, which is a $25,000 miss, but it's quite a bit off from budget of $3,776,000. Golf, they reforecasted at $4 million, and I'm looking at $3,988,000 for what the projection is. And so that's that projection of expenses is a little bit better, but still off from what we had originally budgeted. And basically, so on down the line, G&A, another large number. We forecasted $2,125,000. Looks like it'll be $2,137,000. And it's about $12,000 missed from the forecast, okay? So all of our operating expenses, we're looking at, we had $13,341,000 budgeted. We reforecasted in July $13,548,000 of expenses. It looks like we may come in around $13,458,000. So that'd be $89,000 pickup, basically. And then, we were kind of excited about that, and Walter put the kibosh on that. So, so Walter said, no, this $93,000 is not right, because he knows there's $70,000 of expenses coming through there for road repairs, right, Walter? So we're going to see that. I'm going to make an adjustment to that and drop that down. So what does that all mean? A lot of numbers up there. Our income / subsidy through October, we budget, or through projected through the end of the year, we budgeted $518,000 to be what we would make this year. In July, we went back and said, no, that's not right. It's going to be closer to $26,000 given everything that's happened through July. And now we're looking at a projection of 146, but now with Walter's new information, we're going to drop this down to about $76,000. So we'll be about $50,000 better on income compared to forecast, but quite a $450,000 off on budget. So it kind of gives us an idea, this projection kind of gives us an idea where we're going to end up at the end of the year, okay? Depreciation is more or less not really a cash number, so I don't really go into that too much, okay? So this is kind of the line item that we worry about. On this section below, it's amenities net. So this is each one of the amenities, and it's basically their revenue less their expenses and what they're contributing to the bottom line. We had anticipated restaurants being at $270,000 subsidy, golf being at a $468,000 subsidy, theater being at $84,000 profit, and fitness at a $136,000 subsidy, and lifestyle at $116,000 subsidy. We came back in July and changed all of these numbers, and we came back with, restaurants are going to be $471,000. I'm thinking it's going to be more $468,000. Golf, $731,000. It looks like it's coming in around $700,000. Theater, $90,000. It looks like it's going to be $104,000 profit. Fitness, we forecasted 110. It looks like it's going to be around 102. And then lifestyle was 133. It looks like it's going to be 123. So these numbers basically are the net of all of these different departments. So, okay. I know that's a lot of numbers getting thrown at you, but that's kind of what we're looking at. You have to keep in mind too that, yeah, we have a lot of subsidies, but that's kind of what the business you're in. You're not in a corporate business where you're trying to make money off of everything, but you do want to break even, obviously. I mean, you want to keep these subsidies down as much as possible. But just keep in mind, you are going to have subsidies no matter what. So it's a service business, and it's to provide service for the residents and a nice facility for residents. So kind of just on a picture format, just to show you like our restaurants. So our budget was 3.5. Reforecast came in July at 3.230, and we're going to come in around 3,259,000. Golf budgeted was 3,351,000. Reforecast for revenue was 3,306,000. And then it looks like projection is going to be 3,288,000. So down from, all of these are kind of going down the wrong way, actually. The one that's doing well is fitness. They have a budget of 135. They had their reforecast was 159, and then their projection is 174. So they're trending in the right direction as far as revenue goes. Okay. All right, next slide, please. And again, with the expenses, we're just showing restaurants. So restaurants are $3,776,000. Restaurant expenses go along with their revenue just because the cost of goods sold is increases as revenue increases as far as a dollar amount goes. Restaurants, the reforecast was $3,701,000. The projection was $3,727,000, and golf had a budget of $3,008,000. Reforecast came in at $4,038,000, and then the projection was $3,988,000 for the year. And then these other expenses follow along with that. Okay. So this slide's our wages slide, wages and burden. This is half of our expense basically. So our reforecast at July was $5,574,000 for all of our wages. Projection is $5,682,000. So that's going to be a miss by about 2%. We do talk to the directors and try to get them to get that number down. Try to manage people off the clock. Basically, it's just like don't be dawdling. Get your work done and go home. Get off the clock type of thing. So that's kind of dragging this down a little bit. What you see on the burden is we had reforecasted $1,275,000. It's coming in a little bit lower than that, $1,202,000. So that's pick up about 6%. The net is $6,849,000 for the reforecast, and then the projection is $6,884,000 is probably where we're going to end for these items. So again, burden is basically our payroll taxes, our workers' comp insurance, and then 401k match on the company side, and medical insurance on the company side. So, and I think that's what I had. That's everything for October. A couple quick things. The number of rounds for golf in October. Mountain View rounds were up 28 from 2021. Preserve rounds were down 27 from 2021, so the combined rounds increased 1 from 2021. Mountain View reopened after overseed. Preserve reopened October 31st. They have a new event called Nine and Dine, so sign up for that. Sip and Swing is going on, and it's going well. And then the cart fleet for the rental carts is delayed until June 23rd, or June 2023, excuse me. And that's all I have.
I want to add just a little bit more, Terry. You know, you look at that and you see, well, how did we miss the budget by $400,000? I just want to kind of put out there that, you know, this year has been real difficult with items doubling in cost, food costs going up, 11%, concrete is way up, your grass and your seed. So there are reasons behind that. It's not that the staff doesn't know how to manage their budget. There are reasons behind why we're that far off. So I just want to leave that out there so you don't think that the staff doesn't know how to manage the budget.
Okay, thank you, Terry.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to old business. The first item is to approve the board working meeting minutes of our October 21st, 2022 meeting. May I have a motion? And a second? Second. Okay. Is there any discussion among the board? Any questions or discussion from the audience? There being none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion has moved. The next item on the agenda is the announcement of any unanimous written consents by the board. These are efforts where the board tries to keep movement within the HOA, even while we don't have a board meeting. And so we have 2 unanimous written consents. The first one is to approve Lee Leksell as chair of the golf committee. And the second unanimous consent was to approve the decommissioning of the employee appreciation committee. And both of those were handled by a unanimous written consent. For those of you who might question why we would decommission the appreciation committee, it's because we are continuing to try and put a degree of separation between the HOA as a corporation and those individuals that are doing the work of getting donations from all of our homeowners to provide gifts to our employees next month. It's a fine line. We want to make sure that they are considered gifts and not part of their income, so that those gifts are not taxable to their income. The next item on the agenda, so I'd like to explain this a little bit. It's a motion to approve the elimination of the MountainView Golf Course GIF funding for a rebuild of the number 15 green. Last working meeting on the 21st, we went through all of the items that were being looked at or requested by the golf committee to use up their golf improvement funds. When we got through the first 4 items, in doing quick math up here, we kind of had an error. And so we had then gone ahead and approved this number 15 green, but upon later looking at this more closely, we realized that there isn't enough money that would be left in the GIF to fund that. And so I'm looking for a motion to approve the elimination of the MountainView Golf Course GIF funding of a rebuild of the number 15 green.
So moved.
May I have a second? Any discussion among the board? Any discussion among members? There being no any additional discussion, I have a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion has carried. I'm going to piggyback on that right now because while we don't have the amount of money it would take to do that work, the golf committee then came back and asked if we would approve the addition of using some of those remaining GIF funds for the rebuild of the MountainView number 4 right bunker. And this would happen during the renovation process and is about a $10,000 item. And so may I have a motion to do so? And a second? Second. Okay. Any discussion among the board? Any discussion in the audience? There being no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The motion has carried. The next item on the agenda is an update on level 4 and level 5 maintenance. For those of you who weren't at our last board meeting or at the budget town hall that was earlier this month, the board, in working with staff, have decided that we believe there is an opportunity for homeowners to be able to do some of the level 4 and level 5 work. And so this is an update on the information that staff has to date. This is not the final, but it's an update on how it looks like it would progress.
All right, hello again. We're gonna just give the board a quick update on the staff's view of the options. We had 3 different options kind of presented on how to approach the level 5 maintenance. And then staff, we looked at it, Anthony and I looked at it, and we came back with also a 4th or a modified number 3 option, which I'm going to explain here in these slides. All right, and Anthony's back here to back me up in case I tell you something wrong. He can straighten me out. So, all right, so just to go over the 3 options that we were looking at originally. Option 1 was hiring a contractor to come in and to clean all of level 5 initially, and that would be kind of the first year. And then after that, we would have Anthony's team built up, and they would then continue throughout the years to maintain the level 5 area. And that, over a 6-year period, was calculated to be $2,400,000 over the whole 6-year period. And then Anthony's team on that option would it would take him 5 years to get through all of level 5 in the community, so it would be a 5-year cycle. Option 2 was just have Anthony's crew built up and have his crew do the work. Again, looking at a 6-year cycle, calculations came up to $1,355,000 to do that for 6 years. And again, with Anthony's crew only, that would be a 5-year cycle. Option 3 that we were looking at is to actually purchase a Caterpillar, a big piece of equipment that we can get behind the walls and just have it chew up and mulch a lot of stuff, knock down all the debris really quick. And then in addition, and then that also has a manpower of about one operator and then a second person part-time to come behind and, get some of the detailed work done. So that was cost out to be $772,000 for that option, and that option would also offer a 1-year cycle. Now, that looks pretty good, but we looked at that, and I don't think that Anthony's team can actually perform the 3-year or the option 3. So this is what I looked at, Anthony and I looked at. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So this is a piece of equipment which, I think this is a good idea. Ever since I've been here, I was like, mentioning, well, there should be some type of equipment that we don't have to do this all by hand. So Don, having his background experience, said, hey, there's this piece of equipment we can get, and mainly it can come in and do your level 5 and mulch and, get around and get a lot of that work done. And the other benefits is there's also some other attachments when we're not in level 5 we could use to do other things. So that's the piece of equipment that we're looking at. Now, if you go to the next slide. So what this represents is Anthony and I looked at it and I said, hey, okay, Anthony, I know that's a Caterpillar, but there are just some areas here in Saddlebrook that we probably can't get to or we can't operate that on because of the steep slopes. It says it can go up to a 45-degree angle, so that's pretty steep. But so Anthony looked at the map, and what you got here is any of the yellow areas, we think we can get that Caterpillar in there and do some work. Any of the orange areas, we're thinking that, that might be a challenge and we probably wouldn't be able to use that piece of equipment. So doing some quick math and speculating, we came up with, that looks about maybe 60% of the community that we can get in and use that piece of equipment. Okay, so what do you do then if you can only get to 60% of the community and not 100% of the level 5 areas? All right, go ahead and go to the next slide. Just some examples. This is Anthony's team went in and worked on these 2 areas just for examples. This is between 2 different houses, level 5, a wall here, and then on the other side you'd have someone else's wall. That's pretty flat, that's pretty easy. No problem getting the piece of equipment in there and knocking that down pretty quick. Other areas, Anthony did this one, which is a house that's kind of up on an incline and goes down to the golf course. You can see the cart path down here. So with that piece of equipment, yeah, we may be able to get it in there, but we're not going to be able to move as quickly because, we don't want to chop everything down. We'd have to maneuver around the vegetation we want to save. And then there's actually areas that we just won't be able to get to because it's too steep or maybe the access points are hard to get to. So again, back to the 60% that we could do with the piece of equipment. All right, next slide. Okay, so then this is what we thought, Anthony thought realistically if we do get that Caterpillar, there's still, we estimated the 40% we can't get to is about 107 acres. And so with a 4-man team, to do 107 acres is just about 2 years, and then you add on whatever we can get with the Caterpillar. So that's why I say just over 2 years. So kind of a 2-year with the manpower to get the 107 acres and then whatever it takes to with the Caterpillar. So the cycle there with the Caterpillar and Anthony's team, just over 2 years to get through the whole community. Again, I've mentioned the access points. Another thing that concerned Anthony was because this vehicle has tracks on it and as you turn and spin to maneuver, you could damage some of the vegetation, because we want to leave a lot of the vegetation to, for erosion and just, you don't want to totally scalp it. You want to leave some for the animals to be able to, have shelter in also. So that was a concern there. And so then backing that out between option 3 with the machine and option 2 with Anthony's crew, we come up with these trickle-down economic numbers here. So the option 3 is $772,000, which includes 1.5 manpower estimate there. And then if we add Anthony's crew on to take care of the 107 acres, that'd be another 2.5 people to get them up to a 4-man crew. And so we figure over the 6 years it would be $1.6 million, and then that comes down to basically $277,000 every year for that 6-year period. But, so what's the advantage of this? It's kind of, the cost is more than, is kind of in between option 1 and 2, but the real advantage here is you don't wait 5 years. You only have a 2-year cycle, and you also have that piece of equipment to make it through most or 60% of the community. Okay, so that's our conclusion there, Therese.
Walter, before you move on to level 4, the $277 a year, well, actually, I guess my question is, where does the cost for the machine show up? Is that part of the $772,000 total?
Yes, the way Don has that calculated out, we would do a capital lease on that piece of equipment. So it's covered in that $772,000, but it's just split between all 6 years as a capital lease.
Okay, thank you.
All right. If
Are we asking questions, or is
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, he's still got level 4, but if you got questions on level 5, I'd say let's get it before we all forget.
okay? Well, actually, let me wait till you're done with 4, and then we'll do the whole thing. Thank you.
I would like to thank both Anthony and Walter, as well as Don, for the amount of work that they've done trying to figure this out and see whether this piece of machinery could work for us and to what degree. So I want to truly thank the 3 of you for the work you've put into this.
Okay, so just a different topic. We were looking at level 4, so if we can go to the next. And level 4, of course, is what Anthony and his crew take care of day after day, the 8 feet behind your walls. And so the question came up, well, what if we let residents work behind the wall? And so I'm not going to say yes or no, but I'm going to just present, there was a couple HOAs that do allow people to work behind their property wall. So I went and collected a couple pieces of information from them just to see how they run their program. So as you can see there, the first folks I asked was our neighbors, HOA 1. And so HOA 1 allows folks to work behind their wall, but I believe they're phasing that out because the information I got from them said in 2003 they started to phase this out. However, there are still people that are grandfathered in that still are allowed to work behind their walls. Now, the way that HOA 1 designates this, when the person has a permission to work behind their wall, they have to put some gravel down behind their wall. And so when HOA 1 maintenance come along and they come up to a house that has a section of gravel, they don't take care of that, and that's all on the homeowner to take care of and maintain. But like I said, as far as I can tell from their documentation, it looks like the last time anybody was allowed to do that was in 2003, and then they're just slowly phasing that out. The other HOA that I got information from is over in Dove Mountain, the Highlands. So the Highlands actually have a program where they will allow people to work behind their walls, but first, before they allow that, the person has to go to a training class. And that would be something where they learn about vegetation, they would learn about the proper way to trim the vegetation, and they were also, I guess, trained on what they cannot take out, trees and other things that may have to stay. So there's a training program for them before they get out there. Of course, they have to sign an agreement, and it's an agreement to stay within the HOA standards of how they trim the vegetation. And in that agreement, I noticed it said no chemicals and no power tools. So I thought that was interesting is, okay, you're allowed to work back there, but you can't take power tools, so it'd just be hand-powered trimming tools. Another thing I noticed is they designate a time. You can't just go back out behind your wall at any time. There's designated times that the HOA allows you to be out, which I think helps control, because if you're looking behind the wall and you see someone out at the wrong time, you can, tell them to quit trimming because it's not the right time of year, and you can check to see if they've been trained. And finally, they require them to wear a vest. So, it's kind of obvious if you see the person with the bright vest out that most likely they have gone through the training and have permission to do that. So, these are the two HOAs that we looked at, different methods to control this. Pretty straightforward as far as I can tell. But like anything, if we start a new program and allow that, there's going to have to be some oversight, which then puts more requirement on Anthony and his team, which most likely would drive another resource or person to help run that program. So that's my overview of level 4.
Time for questions? Great, thank you. Anthony,
we're done.
not Anthony, Walter, I'm sorry. Is the definition, you know, we hang our hat on level 4 being 8 feet over the wall, and the level 5 area is an additional 30 feet past the wall. So I think the definition for all of this in combination is 38 feet past your wall is what we are kind of worried about at this point in time in terms of maintenance. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So do you know, does HOA 1 and the Highlands, is their definition of that similar, or are they allowing residents to go further than 8 feet when they let them go over the wall? I don't know. Can you answer that?
Those details were not in their documents, but I know HOA 1 doesn't go all the way 8 feet. I think they're more like 4 or 5 feet behind their walls.
Okay. So when they're talking about letting people go over the wall, they're doing something, HOA 1, doing something similar to what we're talking about for level 4 and 8 feet area.
That's correct, and we wouldn't really want them to go level 5. We would like to just keep them at level 4.
Okay. So they're not expecting people to go further, doing more, that kind of stuff. It really is what we think of as level 4 is the plan that you're talking about here.
That's correct.
Okay. The last question I have for you, level 4 requires maintenance. Anthony, you have 12 people full-time, and you also have, I think, 2 of the staffing thing kind of shows 2 part-time. So you got 12 full-time. You have yourself is outside of that, but 12 full-time, 2 part-time. Can you kind of suggest what you think of in terms of manpower for just level 4 today? What would you think that might be?
Well, currently we have a 4-man staff that takes care of the level 4 on an annual cycle.
Okay, so annually you get to all level 4. I know that's your goal and that's the policy. So are you saying that, and you don't have to answer this right now because this is just part of this discussion, so I'm not trying to put you on the spot here come up with an answer. I am curious though how many man hours or people it takes to maintain level 4 on a yearly basis.
Well, if you take into account the work that we put in to repair monsoon damage annually, it takes, you know, a 4-man staff to get through that cycle and still have a buffer to address some of the storm damage that we encountered throughout the year.
Okay, so maybe conservatively it might be a couple of full-time people, I don't know, just for level 4. And the reason where I'm going with this is in my brain, it may be just me, I think of over the wall as over the wall. So I'm thinking about what we do, if we're talking about this whole level 5 thing and trying to get to it and maintain it eventually every year, I don't know that whole process of 4 and 5 looks different in my mind. So I'm just trying to get to an understanding of.
Well, basically in level 4, we're cutting down the grasses and typically there isn't a lot of vegetation that we maintain within that 8 feet. Occasionally there's a tree that's growing on the boundary of the 8 feet that we'll have to prune and keep out of the homeowner's yard. But if you start moving into like the level 5 stuff, now we're talking about a different level of maintenance because we're talking about a lot of plant material and we're talking about trying to minimize the erosion And along with that, there's a lot of wildlife that depend on all that vegetation that's in that level 5 area. If we start doing something like we do in level 4 in the level 5, then we're going to be basically just scraping the desert down to nothing. And my concern is just the erosion that comes along with that mostly.
Okay.
But, people depend on, they bought these houses to be closer to the desert, and it's important that we try to maintain that desert responsibly.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I'm sure I'll think of something else later, but anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And a question for clarity. Okay. In identifying the level 5 areas, for example, and it's hard to tell off maps, the area of up there by the fire station, which is in Saddlebrook or Ocotillo or whatever that street is that goes up there.
Yes,
What amount of maintenance is required to that? It's pure desert. There's no housing, no nothing. So why would do we plan to have to go into that area, and how far?
yeah, like you said, I'd have to pull up the actual detailed map to see exactly how far we go into that. Yeah, so I'd have to look at that.
If you're referring to the area that's just to the west of the fire station, is that correct?
To the east of the fire station.
The east of the fire station.
Where just above the current culvert that runs down that street. It's just pure desert. It's never been touched, ever. So, but yet it's identified here as an area that is inaccessible to the equipment.
Yeah.
Are we going to begin to go into these types of areas and start working on them when there doesn't appear to be any return on that effort?
Well, if it's considered a level 5 area, then I think we need to kind of keep it in mind if it's too dense, that we should go and thin out some of the plant material.
Does level 5 go all the way up to the Verizon tower?
No, it doesn't. I don't believe it does. No. We don't own that property. I don't think.
We own it, but...
We own it? Okay. No.
So what's the differential between the area by the culvert and that up by the tower? Where do we decide we are and we aren't? Just doesn't seem like an area that I would waste time trying to maintain.
Yeah. Well, for that, I think it's important to, since that's a high erosion area, we need to try to actually do what we can to maintain the grasses that are in that area.
And you maintain those
so we're
by...
not going to be taking any equipment up there too.
Right, but if you're trying to maintain for erosion on that steep side, why would you cut the grass at all in there?
Why would it cut the grasses?
Right, yeah.
Well, if it's considered a level 5 area, I think we probably have to keep it in mind, but it might be a situation where we make an exception and not do anything with it because
well, we have a long area behind Overlook that the properties are at a certain level and they look out toward the mountains, and the area that is identified here is straight down a hill. You have to walk to the end of the property to even see it. I don't know why we would suddenly start saying this is an area we want to start maintaining in some fashion.
Okay, what I'd like to do now is, we're getting into the nitty-gritty, and it hasn't been decided. I would like to take that offline with you guys, and you guys can figure it out. Chuck?
Just one quick question. When your conversations with HOA 1 or the Highlands, did they mention any kind of injuries or suits or anything like that from homeowners?
No, they actually didn't mention any type of injuries.
Yeah. I do remember just the one thing on that presentation from HOA 1, that the reason I think that they said that they were stopping it was because almost all the owners didn't want to screw with behind the walls anyway, so they were getting almost no participation from the residents anyway. It was a very few number of residents that wanted to get behind the wall and even do work. So just a note. So anyway.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on
Thank you.
to new business. The first item that you have on the agenda for new business, this agenda was written a couple weeks ago before I was leaving the country for a couple weeks. And this was actually taken care of through one of those unanimous written consents that I mentioned earlier. And so the first item does not need to be worked on. The next item on the agenda is I'd like a motion to approve Dan Mullin as a member of the ALC committee. So moved. May I have a second? Second. Is there any discussion among board? Is there any discussion among the audience? There being no discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. The motion carries. Okay, we're going to get into the meat of a lot of what this particular board meeting is about, which is our 2023 budget. And I'd like to invite Terry back up as the Director of Finance to give his overview of the 2023 budget.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to go over the 2023 final draft of the budget. Next slide, please. First slide is going to talk about our 2023 key assumptions that we're making. We're asking for a dues increase up to $3,300 or 15.027%. Amount allocated to reserve would be 2.881, 2,881,000. Inflation, one of the assumptions we made when we built the budget was inflation to be 3 to 8%, depending on what the category was. Our rate increase for electricity, we put in at 8%. Food costs, we increased by 5%. New home closures, we have it at 25 for 2023. Home resales are at, again, 180, same as what we had for 2022. Wage increases, we have it at 8% maximum per department. So that doesn't mean everybody's going to get 8%. It's per department, it's an average. So some people can get, a little bit better, some people a little bit worse, but we're trying to have a number for them to stick to. Minimum wage increase is, we put in at 8.3% beginning January 1. Minimum wage is going from $12.80 to $13.85 an hour, and it's 8.4% increase just on minimum wage. We asked for an increase in F&B prices by 6%, and our health insurance for 2023 has increased by 5.4%. That kind of covers what our key assumptions were. Next page. So last year, our dues were at $28.69 for 2022. Last year was a 5% increase from the 2021 actual. This year we're asking $3,300 for the dues, and that's a 15% increase. This is based on an average number of homes of 3,152 for the year. It'll give us revenue of $10,401,000 to work with. Operating fund assessments and other income, we had budgeted in 2022 $6,500,000, and it will be $7,700,000 for 2023. Community service fee was $2,700,000. We're budgeting $3,207,000 for 2023. Community improvement fees, $533,000 was 2022 budget. We're looking at $594,000 for 2023. Comcast, we had an actual of $182,000. This was one of the payments we received from Comcast to allow them to operate within the Saddlebrook area. We have zero down for that, for the capital improvement portion of it. Amenity revenue, again, we talked about this earlier, that's all of our F&B, golf, lifestyle, and fitness. And we had budgeted $6,276 for 2022 budget, and for 2023 is $7,218,000. Okay. And this graph kind of shows us where all of our revenues come from. Our total revenues for 2023 will be $15.5 million. We have community service fee, $7,520,000. Golf is $3,157,000. Restaurants, $3,583,000. And the other amenities round up the difference, and CIF funds $585,000. Okay. All right. Next slide. What we're budgeting for our amenities for 2023, and the big number is golf at a subsidy of $1,147,000. Again, that's because our MountainView course will be shut down, and that's what's driving that number to this high amount. Restaurants, we had budgeted at $270,000 subsidy last year. We're missing that, as I talked about earlier. But this year we're budgeting at $343,000 as a subsidy for 2023. Theater, $122,000 profit. Fitness, $113,000 subsidy, and lifestyle, $132,000 subsidy, with a total of a subsidy of $1.613 million. Okay, next slide. Our operating expenses, which is our G&A, our facilities, common area, and patrol. Can you move the banner down to the bottom? Or I guess that would cover that up too. Okay, never mind. So the general admin, the actual for 2021 was $1,988,000. We budgeted $2,097,000, and for 2023, we're saying $2,344,000, and the reason for that change is because we are consolidating some of the training and such from all of the departments into G&A. Also, G&A is covering our IT expenses that seem to be going up quite a bit as well. So, facilities, we have an actual was 1.5 in 2021. Our budget was 1.5, and we're asking for 2023 the budget to be 1.6 for facilities. Common area, we had 978 in 2021. 2022 budget was $1,173,000, and common area budget for 2023 is $1,438,000, and patrol is pretty somewhat flat. Their budget was $307,000 in 2022, and for 2023 we're asking for $325,000 for patrol. Okay, then next slide. With this slide, what I'm showing is we had budgeted $5,007,000. Our forecast was $5,006,000 for our wages, and we're saying that the budget should be $6.2 million for 2023, which is a 9.8% increase, but we're also going to be increasing a couple of full-time employees, so that adds to that. So it's not directly correlated to an 8% increase or a 10% increase per person. It has to do with additional people we'll bring on board. Total burden, $1.2 million for the reforecast, and we're saying for 2023 that'll be closer to $1.3 million, $1.4 million. So our total wages and burden is going up from 6.8 on our reforecast to 7.6, and that's a 10% increase over the reforecast. And then also keep in mind that these amounts are being fully staffed for the full year, which is usually not the case. So that's our wages. And our reserve expenditures. This is where the money's going on the reserves. So for 2020, Golf had received the lion's share. 2021, MountainView and the property sites received the most and the reserve amounts. In 2022, MountainView Clubhouse, property site and golf, and then 2023, the reserve amounts are going to be pretty much all going to golf, with some going to DesertView. And the 2023 golf reserve expenditure, although this says $2.1 million, it's, as we'll talk about, is there's going to be a $6 million loan in this amount as well. So this is just the net amount that we're going to have for 2023 as far as the cash amount going out. Okay. And that's kind of just an overview of what we're doing with the budget for 2023 without going into all the granular detail. So, okay.
Okay, thank you, Terry.
Okay.
Next, I'd like to invite Pat Lentz, Chair of the Finance Committee, to come up and give a recommendation on our 2023 budget.
Good morning. You're lucky I don't have any slides. The Finance Committee is charged with participating in the production, working with staff and management on the budget process, providing the communication to the community by open meetings and town halls and that. They also asked to provide a recommendation, which is what I have now. Yesterday, the Finance Committee met, and this is the recommendation from the committee. The Finance Committee of Saddlebrook, HOA2, held numerous meetings with residents and staff to review management's 2023 financial budget. While this budget was created during uncertain financial environment, we do, however, believe the budget was well thought through and compiled consistent with internal financial statements, and recommend the board approve the budget.
Thank you, Pat. And Pat, please thank your whole committee. I know how hard they work on this through the last 6 months, so thank you.
Thank you for acknowledging them.
And now I'd like to ask our treasurer to give her perspective on our budget.
Good morning, everybody. Next slide, please. I just want to take a moment to remind all of us on what our board responsibilities are, particularly as they relate to the budget. So the board is tasked with ensuring the continuation of the amenities and facilities that we as homeowners have been promised, and to secure sufficient funding to cover the costs of those amenities and facilities, and as well to continuously monitor operational and financial performance of management. So all of this relates to the budget. It is really just one of the key responsibilities that the board has. Next slide, please. The budget process has been a long one, and I won't go into a whole lot of detail, but we start back in May when the board determines guidance for the budget. We solicit requests from staff and homeowners as to any particular things they'd like to have in the budget. Staff prepares the budget, the Finance Committee reviews it, and there are several open meetings along the way to look at different aspects of the budget. So, for example, the reserve budget, the operating budget, the particular budget requests. Then we have the Budget Town Hall, which was held just a couple weeks ago, where there's a little more detail that is presented. And finally, today, the board approval. Next slide, please. So some of the highlights of the budget. So as Terry pointed out, our wages and burden are the single largest cost component, and in fact, it's about half of our expenses of the HOA. So when we look at that, one of the things that we've seen this year is that 2022 has turned out to be about 20% higher than it was in 2021, and we're looking at another increase in 2023 with the increase in the minimum wage as well as other increases, merit increases along the way. So when we're looking at that, we're looking at from 21 to 23, about a 30% increase in wages. So that, when you're talking about half of your expenses, that gets to be a real significant numbers. And on top of that, our burden has increased a little bit faster pace than that. And as Terry had pointed out, that covers insurance and the 401k match and workers' comp and those type of things. The other significant area here I wanted to talk about was the MountainView renovation effort. So as you all know by now, or at least I hope you do, that the MountainView golf course is going to be undergoing a significant renovation in 2023, which will require it to be closed for 5 or 6 months. So that has a big impact on the golf revenue, not just for people who want to come out and play around occasionally, but for people who might say, hey, I buy an annual, but I'm not going to get my full use out of it if the golf course is closed for that long. So it was really kind of tough for us, for the golf staff, to try to figure out what kind of effect might we have there? What will people do? It's really uncharted territory. So that's been a big impact there. Another part is, if the golf course is closed, the MountainView golf course is closed, the Mesquite restaurant serves a lot of those golfers. So that's going to have an effect on the Mesquite revenue. And in fact, at this point, we're anticipating that that restaurant will be closed for a good portion of the time when that golf course is under construction. And the MountainView Bar and Grill will be open for breakfast and lunch to try to pick up revenue for people that would have gone to the Mesquite. Again, a big unknown. How will that affect the Mesquite and the food and beverage revenue? The third item here is the common area cost increase, and Walter and Anthony have discussed, what some options are. But in this 2023 budget, we have anticipated an increased level 5 effort on the maintenance there. So there's an additional 4-man crew in the budget, plus some small tools, plus in the CIF budget there is some money for equipment, although not the big piece of equipment that Don has recommended. Or actually, that is in there, isn't it? Well, it's a capital lease. It's not in there. Never mind. And finally, we have the reserve budget, which includes the MountainView golf renovation and also includes that we will be obtaining a $6 million loan potentially to help to cover those costs. Next slide, please. So how do we determine the dues? And basically the dues must cover our cost to operate and maintain our facilities, that is our roads, our buildings, et cetera. It has to cover the subsidies for our revenue producing amenities such as F&B and golf. And it also has to cover capital expenditures from the operating fund. But the biggest single thing that it covers is allocation to the reserve fund, which would be maintaining our infrastructure. Next slide, please. So this is basically how the dues break down on a per homeowner basis. So if you look at for 2023, the dues will be $3,300. So where do those dollars go? Well, you can see up there the gray slice of the pie there is the reserves. $900 of your dues will be going to the reserves to maintain our facilities. Another big slice is G&A at $733, and that's also to support all our infrastructure, like our administrative staff, our property taxes, our IT, our HR function, all of those things are in there. Another big area is facilities, $517, sorry, I just increased your dues tremendously. $517, and common area, $450. So you can see that we do have a lot of expenditures here, and here's really where your dues are going. And I'll point out as well that for some of our revenue-producing amenities that we subsidize get a lot of attention. And so I'll point out that of the $3,300 in dues, $107 will be going to subsidize the restaurants. And this year, $359 will go for golf. And again, this is an unusual year for golf. Next slide, please. So we have some major uncertainties here in this budget. There's always uncertainties, of course, but this year we have some unusual ones. Inflation has taken off tremendously, as everybody knows. So is that going to abate? Is that going to continue? You know, this is a risk. So we've done our best to estimate this, but, you know, it will be what it will be. Golf revenue, again, as I said, what will be the effect of the MountainView golf closure? So it could be much better than what we've anticipated in here, and I think things are going pretty well so far on the sales of our annual passes and so on. But we'll see. We'll know better in another month or two how that's going to turn out. The MountainView Golf Renovation Project, we are in the process of negotiating a loan, and Campbell will be covering some of that on the next session of the meeting here. And at this point, we've included a $6 million loan at 7.5% over 5 years. It could be something different. So that's another area of uncertainty. And then finally here, Club Life has just come on board. They're really still getting their feet wet, so to speak, and so we are anticipating some savings. What might those be, and how might they have an effect here on this budget and our actual results for next year? Next slide, please. So in summary, well, you know, as I've just pointed out, there's some significant uncertainties in this budget and some unusual ones, but I also want to point out that they could be better. It could be better or it could be worse, you know, from what we've projected here. So we will see as we go along. Our operating cash balance remains healthy, and with this budget, it will continue that way. Our reserve funding, as I said, must be supplemented by some outside financing in order to support the golf renovation project. Our capital improvement fund, which, by the way, in this budget, we are anticipating that 50% of the capital improvement fees will be going to the reserve fund, and 50% will be going to the capital improvement fund. And that will be, you know, continuing to build that to support community improvements. And so finally, I just want to say I think that this budget is a stretch. We've got some areas that are going to be a little bit of a stretch for our departments. We have some areas that may not be so much of a stretch, but I do think overall that it's a balanced budget and that it is doable.
Thank you, Joyce.
Motion?
Hmm?
Motion?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, so with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2023 budget as has been presented here today.
May I have a second, please? Any discussion among the board? Any discussion among members in the audience? Okay, if you would, please come up to the mic, state your name and your unit and lot number. And we hold questions or comments to 2 minutes.
My name is Jerry Hack, Unit 36, Lot 18. My question to the board is, in the past, and I've been here almost 19 years, every major capital expenditure that has been put through here has been set to the homeowners for a vote. My question is, why didn't the homeowners get the vote on this? It's the largest since I've been here. And is this going to set up a new precedent?
Okay, I'll try and address that. Thank you for the question. There are different funding sources and different components that are used to fund what we're doing for our homeowners. So, for example, when we were looking at purchasing the golf courses, which was going to take brand new money to do that, we did need to go to a vote of the homeowners in order to make that occur. However, once we own property, once we own it, then that's where our reserves take over. And so, for example, when we work or do completely rebuild our roads, which easily hit into $1 million a year, easily, sometimes more, we don't go to homeowners and ask them if we should spend that amount of money, because it's the board's duty to make sure the roads are kept up. And so that is the same responsibility we have for the golf courses or our pools or any other building. It is the board's responsibility to ensure that all of our amenities are kept up. Yeah, this is a tough one, but it's, once again, it's our responsibility, and so that's why it did not go to the board, to the homeowners. Any other questions? There being no other questions, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries. The next item is, I'd like to have a motion to approve that 50% of the community improvement funds collected in 2023 will be moved to the reserve funds. May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion among the board? Any discussion among members? There being no discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. That being said, the motion carries. I'd like to go on now to announcements. The first thing I'd like to do is voting ended at noon on this Wednesday for the replacement for 2 members of the board who will be leaving at the end of this year. And so I would like to announce, and since they're both in the auditorium, ask them to stand up. I'd like you to welcome our 2 new board members taking effect January 1. They are Sean Kreiderman and Matt Cambick. I would like to thank you both for having actually considered and running for the board and the commitment it takes. For those of us who are up there, we know what it is, so thank you. The next item I'd like to announce is that the general manager's coffee will be Wednesday, December 7th, and that the next for the record distribution is November 28th. I'm going to now adjourn this meeting, but instead of going to member comments right away, I'm going to instead call to order a meeting of the board working meeting at 11:35 a.m. This particular working meeting has only one item on the agenda under new business. And this has to do with a loan for the Mountain View renovation. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to our Assistant Treasurer, Campbell Cheney, to walk us through this.
Morning, everyone. In September, I was tasked with the finding the best funding available for this Mountain View golf renovation coming up next year. So I sent out 4 RFPs, for proposals, to 3 different banks that I know, and then one was a vendor financing with Rainbird, who is providing the irrigation equipment for us. We got, with a lot of back and forth over the ensuing few weeks, we actually got 2 term sheets, which is kind of like pre-qualifications pending further due diligence, which I like to go over kind of a side-by-side. So next slide, please. Yes, the side-by-side with the 2 banks, one being the vendor financing and the other being Alliance Association Bank, which is our usual bank. The loans we're asking for is $6 million. You can see each one is offering $6 million. The ultimate bank is Western Alliance for the bank, and then the vendor financing is Community Banks of Colorado. The one was broker generated, so Community Banks is actually a broker that brought us this bank deal. What's important now are the rates that were being offered. Right now, it has not been locked, either one. It's going to be locked at closing, so it'll be a fixed rate loan for 5 years. But right now, it's going to be keyed off of the 5-year U.S. Treasury rate. For the Alliance Bank, it's 5 years plus 2.75%, or a minimum of 7%. So right now, considering the 5-year is below what would be 7%, it's now going to be 7% minimum. The other bank is not offering us a minimum. It's just basically, again, the 5-year Treasury rate plus 1.85%. But this is for 6 years. This is not going to be for a 5-year loan like the other. So it's an important differential. Now, the first bank on the left-hand column is basically a principal and interest loan, like you would your home mortgage. It's payable in 60 months. The second one is for 6 years, but it's interest only the first year during the construction phase, and then it turns over into a principal and interest over the remaining 5 years, so it's a 6-year loan. What's also interesting is Alliance Association Bank is offering, you have to pay monthly, like you would your home mortgage. The other loan is basically you pay twice a year. So it's semi-annual. So it's more like a corporate bond than necessarily kind of a home mortgage payment. Now this is kind of critical in our decision making. Alliance is going to only charge us $6,000 for the fees for the loan. The second bank is going to charge us $120,000 for the loan. So something to consider with that. And also kind of looking at some of the other things, prepayment penalties. Now this is going to be interesting with the Alliance Bank loans. We can prepay at any time with no penalty, as long as you're not refinancing it through a different bank. But if you want to prepay it at any monthly interval, you can prepay as much as you want in the principals. The other loan, basically you got to pay all or nothing. Either you call it and pay off 100%, or you don't pay any of it off. The collateral is what you would expect is basically the assignment of our dues, because that's where the cash flow is. Adding it all together, the 5 years at 7%, with the fees, the one bank is going to cost $7,087,000. The second bank is going to cost $7,209,000 because there's that extra year of interest that we have to pay, as well as the heavy $120,000 in fees. Next slide, please. Can you go back one slide? Yep, that. I'm going to skip over some of these reporting requirements. These are standard reporting requirements for bank loans. But one thing I do want to point out is there's a debt service coverage, which means we have to earn at least 15% above the price of the loan, which is only about $150,000. So it's not really that much of a hurdle. We also have to have 20% of our annual assessments in cash at the bank at any one time. Right now, that's about $2 million. Right now, we're at $5.7 million at the end of October, so that's not much of a hurdle either. The other loan doesn't really have much of a minimum balance. We also have to carry deposits at each institution, which is not unusual considering bank loans. They want you to have a deposit at their account, a deposit at their bank. And then kind of the next slide, please. This is kind of the meat of the presentation. I boiled it down to what is a per resident burden on these loans. And so you can see I've abbreviated Alliance Association Bank, AAB, and I did Rainbird, just RB. So the fees, you can see it's $2 per resident for the $6,000 or $38 for the $120,000. And then in year one, you can see what the burden is going to be per year. Now, this is embedded in the dues. This is not on top of what you're going to have to, what is going to be in the dues. This is in the dues, the first two columns. Adding it up, it's about $2,260 over the 5 years for the AAB loan, or $2,335 per resident for the Rainbird loan. Now, what's interesting is I thought for comparisons reasons, I would put what a special assessment would look like as well, since we've had comments about why are we doing a loan, why not just do a special assessment. Up front, that would be $1,913 you'd have to pay up front. But that also, you have to forfeit any income that you might gather from that $1,913 over the next 5 years. That's an opportunity lost or an opportunity cost, as they say. So a reasonable investment, if you were to take that $1,900 and put it into, let's say, a AAA bond, a very high safety bond, you could earn $100 or so a year in interest, but you're going to be forfeiting that with an upfront cost. So putting that back into the equation, because that is something that you could be earning but are not going to be able to because you're going to be putting $1,900 up front. So that totals $2,419. Now, something else that's interesting, at least to me, is paying $452 or $436 5 years from now is not really the same as $1 today. So $1 5 years from now is not as worth as $1 today, especially with 8% inflation. So if you want to do a present value and kind of make a what would the burden be in today's values of these three type of options, it's $2,040 for the Alliance loan, it's $2,057 for the Rainbird loan, or $2,360 for the opportunities lost plus the upfront cost. So really the most efficient, or kind of the least burden on the homeowner, is going to be the Alliance loan. And that's what I have. Oh, sorry, one more risk. One more slide. Risks. What are some of the risks that you can kind of map out here? With the Alliance Bank, you're assigning dues as collateral. We've got a minimum cash balance of 20% of the annual dues, which is $10 million, 20% of that's $2 million. Hasn't been much of a stretch for us to date. You can't have more than 10% delinquency rates. That's 60 days past due, measured once a year at the end of the year. You can't. So that's 310 homeowners. I think we have less than a handful, so not much at all. Plus the debt service coverage ratio, which isn't much. The Rainbird is the same. I put a risk here, $120,000 in upfront fees, whether they fund it or not. I mean, we got to pay that if we go down that road. Seems to be kind of a deal breaker, at least in my account. And then the special assessments, something to consider is not all residents can afford to cough up $2,000 or almost $2,000 up front. That's something to consider. The community has to vote on it because it's more than $300, and the risk is if you don't take the loan and the community does not approve it, where do you go? Then you got to start all over again. And then one of the other things is you could see increased account delinquencies. If people who aren't able to afford the payment aren't going to be able to make the payments, so our delinquencies are going to go up. So there's some of the risks. And with that...
Thank you.
Okay.
With that being said, I'd like a motion, please, that has 3 parts. The first is to reconfirm approval of our project for the renovation and maintenance of MountainView Golf Course, and then to reconfirm approval of selecting Desert Reflections as the contractor to perform the maintenance and restoration work. And third, to confirm approval of a loan in the amount of $6 million for a term of 5 years with financing provided by Alliance Association Bank, with a loan repayment in the amount of approximately $457 per residence included in the regularly assessed annual dues for a period of 5 years.
So moved.
May I have a second? Ooh, multiple seconds. Okay. Any discussion among board?
Just to confirm that future boards do have the ability, if they prefer, to have an assessment and pay this thing off with no penalty. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, I do have a concern if that wasn't true of tying the hands of future boards without that option. So I'm glad that's out there. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments by members in the audience? There being no questions or answered, all those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. The motion carries unanimously. That being the last business for the board working meeting, I am going to adjourn this meeting.
Before we go, I guess I'd like to just make a point that, Therese and Joyce are going to be leaving the board at the end of this year, and they've had a lot of work, and they wear 2 hats. They wear a hat as a director of the board, but they also wear a hat as the president and the treasurer of the association. And that's an enormous amount of work and a lot of time, I can attest to, having joined the board at the beginning of this year. So I just want to thank them. I don't know we'll have a public meeting to be able to do that. I know there's not a lot of people here, but I really appreciate all the work they did as a contribution as a volunteer, not being paid as just a resident. So
thank you. Okay, are there any resident comments or? Okay, we're done. Everybody have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thank you.